What's up, everybody, and welcome back to our weekly fantasy football podcast. I'm going to invite my good friend, Mr. Improv Pete, onto the show.
What's going on, sir?
Oh, the usual running out of football, buddy.
We are just 2 weeks left, but technically, really 1 week left. Let's be honest here,
Come
ladies
on,
and
the Pro
gentlemen.
Bowl's amazing.
It is,
Amazing.
and if you're a betting man, God, I can't wait to see some of those things coming up.
Who doesn't love a Pro Bowl? Gotta plug
For
in my
the
laptop
Pro Bowl.
because I'm
What's
an
good?
idiot. Plug that bad
So
boy
tell
in.
me, what are we going to start with? What do you want to talk about? What are we doing?
Let's do a twofer. Let's do a twofer.
I
We'll
love
start with one game, break off into a side conversation, and then we'll hit the other game.
So what game we starting with?
The NFC game, so that we can venture off onto the big news.
So the Rams taking on San Fran.
Yeah,
Rams won.
correct.
Not a big surprise. Finally beating San Fran.
Yep. Sorry.
Debo very upset.
He should be. I mean, he's probably the second best player in the playoffs. And yeah, they didn't get it done. So with that being said, some news came out. There's other news that came out, but this is quarterback news as well. Jimmy Garoppolo came out and said he expects to be traded. Since they didn't get it done. I mean, if they had won the Super Bowl, it'd be really hard to trade him because that would just look bad on them. But they didn't win, so Jimmy G came out and said he expects to be traded, and he also said he hopes to be traded to a winning team. So he's getting a little greedy here, but he expects to be traded and hopes to be traded to a winning team.
Imagine they just do a swap between Aaron Rodgers and fucking Jimmy.
I mean, obviously I see Matt every week at bowling. He does not think that San Fran will go for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, it looks leaning more and more towards Denver every week. They keep hiring. They keep hiring everybody from Green Bay. So it looks like that's going to be the thing. But we mentioned last week some other quarterback who we thought was going to take his time decided to retire.
That is true.
So, I mean, I brought it up that I thought Rodgers would be a good fit there because they already have the pieces in place. But I could see Garoppolo also being a possible destination. I don't know what their thoughts and feelings are on him. At this point, yeah, his record's of a winner. But I'm just throwing it out there. If you're a team like that and you're already built to win, you want to get a winning quarterback, so that somewhat makes sense. I don't know, but let's talk about the game a tiny bit before we get into Tom Brady for hours upon hours. Rams are what they are. It's a Cooper Cup show. As long as they avoid Stafford, blowing up the game by turning the ball over 20 times, they're in pretty good shape. Just want to pull up the actual stats so I don't.
Now, of course, you watch this more because because of prior engagements, I wasn't able to watch the game as much. But OBJ very quiet, no touchdowns.
Well, overall, it wasn't a high-scoring game, so that was. I'm not saying I expected it to be a high-scoring game.
Well, all these playoff games, the last 6 playoff games have been by one score.
Correct. So here's the big difference. That changes things drastically. Stafford threw 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Garoppolo threw 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Stafford threw for 337 and Garoppolo threw for 232. So you'd say, okay, Stafford threw a lot more. Correct. The San Fran's a rushing team. San Fran only rushed the ball legitimately 20 times. The Rams rushed the ball 31 times. 29 times. So they outdid them in both aspects. It's very hard to win like that. But the fact that they barely lost, running way less plays, is a testament to how good their defense is. So that's what I'm saying is somebody like Aaron Rodgers puts that team over the top, assuming they're not losing anybody. Debo's not going nowhere. Ayuk, when they use him, ain't going anywhere.
Mhm.
Kittle, I don't think is going anywhere. Eli Mitchell's a rookie, so he ain't going nowhere. So those pieces are all in place. The defense, most of the pieces are all in place. As you said, Debo had 7 targets, four catches for 72 yards, which is nice. But most of that came on a screen pass touchdown, 44-yard touchdown. He didn't do much on the ground, 7 for 26. It was kind of a disappointing game for him. But as we talked about, it's the Cooper Cup show. 11 for 142 for Cup. Not that that should be a shock at any point. I expect nothing less in the Super Bowl as well.
Mhm.
But you said Odell Beckham, he didn't get a touchdown. But you know what? Odell Beckham had 9 for 113. This is not your Cleveland Browns, Odell Beckham. This is not end of his time Giants, Odell Beckham. This is
A resurgence for Odell Beckham.
the new and improved Odell Beckham, where he's becoming a force and almost demanding the ball. He had 9 catches on 11 targets, so it's not like he had 20 targets and got those 9 catches. He was putting in the work.
Mhm. Mhm.
The scary part for that is, okay, so he's a free agent, so he's gonna make some money. I wouldn't be shocked the Rams bring him back, etc. Especially to win the Super Bowl. But Van Jefferson, who's a pretty good young receiver, only got 2 catches because Odell Beckham's just been a force.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know what happened if Robert Woods was there, but Robert Woods is hurt, so I don't know. But Odell Beckham is right, with this constituted lineup, has secured being on the field for almost the entire game. Unless they're running multiple tight end sets, something like that. So good on him. A lot of people don't like him. He's a crybaby, whatever, whatever, whatever. But we're here to
But
strictly talk football. I don't give a shit what the guy does. If he dances around all day long like Juju or anybody, you know what? You put the work in, you perform, do whatever you want.
well, Sean McVay is very happy with him. He said
Yeah.
in an interview, he's like, Odell Beckham's fitting great. He has a great mindset for this team, and that was the worry that we had when he was traded over. We're like, oh, it's gonna be the old Odell Beckham bitching, moaning, but he's really in that organization, in the Rams organization, really has shown, hey, no, I am a top tier player. You can't forget about me. And I think this is great for him. Cleveland Browns obviously couldn't make it work with him towards the latter end with the Giants, obviously not as much. But you have this resurgence with the Rams where what happens to him come this offseason? Because he only signed a 1-year deal, if I'm correct.
Well, yeah, when you get cut in the middle of the season, that's what you get. If you get a contract for the rest of the year. So that
So
kind of leads into the questions, because he's been a model citizen per se. Will there be a team willing to go out there and be like, hey, he's young enough, we'll give him a 5-year deal, or people still gonna be skeptical, him reverting back into old OBJ. So that's something that'll be interesting to see in the offseason, how
well,
that
the
plays out.
interesting thing with Odell Beckham is you got to look at it in this way. You have Matt Stafford, who look at all the years he's been on the Lions and has, no offense, not brought that team to the Super Bowl, plain and simple. You have this Rams team with Cooper Cup being the best wide receiver this year, bar none. You have great, just a great defense, a great team build with Sean McVay being a young coach, very hungry. So you have that good dynamic. So of course OBJ is going to be wanting to be around that. But if other teams say, and I'm just throwing teams out there like, say like Pittsburgh, like you have a new quarterback in Pittsburgh and you have Devontae Johnson, who is a respectable, good wide receiver for fantasy purposes. He had his good weeks, but if you're OBJ, are you coming in being like, well, I was in the Super Bowl last year and we won or we crushed in the Super Bowl. I am the it factor, is that the OBJ we're gonna see? Or is he gonna be humble, being like, look, I came from a Super Bowl team, like I have a good mindset. I want to bring these up and coming guys up to show that they could be a major factor. Like it's which OBJ are you getting, depending, I think, on the team. And with organizations, how do you want to take that risk? If you're not the Rams who have the defense, who have the offense, who have the good quarterback at the helm, then you're looking at teams like, say, Carolina, like, okay, we have McCaffrey, But, OBJ might be like, "Okay, but you don't have that quarterback that I need. You don't have the pieces that I think I need to make that big plays." And that's what I think is gonna be the problem with OBJ and the organizations is unless he finds that top tier team, he's gonna re he's gonna revert back to old OBJ where he's like, "Go Cleveland Browns.
Well,
I was the
let's be
number 1."
realistic with him. We'll start. I'll build my way up. So, part one is realistically, there's probably about half the teams in the league that could use him.
Of course.
I mean, most teams should be able to use him, but I'm putting it as like a point of view, like a Jacksonville. He doesn't do
Mhm.
anything for them right this minute because they're not there yet. You know, the Jets, whatever teams like that, Detroit. So I'm wiping those teams out, and then assuming players don't go anywhere, like he wouldn't be a factor. Okay, they worked it with Antonio Brown, but he probably wouldn't be a factor with a team like Tampa Bay. They need to put their resources other places, obviously getting a quarterback,
Yep,
etc.
yep.
So you're gonna have some teams that aren't ready to take that next step. A team like Arizona, he might be a perfect fit. You got Hopkins, Beckham, Kyler Murray, etc. If he can coexist like he is with Cooper Cup, things like that. Part two of what I was thinking is, like you said, is he going to revert back? He's never going to be a guy. At least I don't think, and it's just my opinion. He'll never be a guy who's going to be like the receiver who mentors the young guys. He's not going to be that guy who's Larry Fitzgerald, something like that. He's not going to be that type of guy who's like, okay, Christian Kirk, come under my wing, and I'm going to mold you into a great route runner. That's not going to be Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham's going to be about Odell Beckham.
Yeah, but the argument I would say, and I'm not defending, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Look at how he was with Debo Samuel when they lost. He went right over to him, like Debo was head down, towel over his head, and he's like, "Look, kid, like it was a good game." Like trying to be like, "You'll get him next time." Like that just for show? Then
It could be a little bit of networking, type of thing where you want to put a good foot forward. Like, hey, maybe I'm coming to San Fran next year,
Mhm.
team up with you. But what I'm just saying is I don't see him,
No, I know.
36
That's
year
why I
old
just
Odell
wanted to point
Beckham
out that.
taking over, the next coming of Jamar Chase and being like, hey, get under my wing and let's go. No, he's gonna be, until he's broken down, on his last legs, whatever. Gonna be that guy, give me my 5, 7, 9 catches, whatever.
I'll give you
So,
those 100 yards.
like he's gonna have a decision to make, and you can say this about anybody heading into free agency. You taking the bag? Well, let's just backtrack. Say they win the Super Bowl. Now you're Odell Beckham and you're hitting free agency, and for whatever reason, the Rams don't want you back. Or maybe you even say the Rams do want you back, but they only want to give you a 1 year deal again. But someone else offers you a 4 year deal. Are you taking the money or are you staying to win? These are things that, only us, not us, him and his agent probably know. So, these are all things because he may put himself in another bad situation, but do you want to risk that again? You wanted to go play with Jarvis Landry because you played college football with him, blah blah blah, and that did not work out very well. So do you want to put yourself
Mhm.
in another one of those type of situations, or do you want to be comfortable? If the Rams say, "Hey, we can only give you 1 year. We have cap issues. Whatever. Let's go win it again," type of deal. Are you good for that? And you say, "Hey, look, I won 2 Super Bowls," or you say, "Hey, I got that 4 year, $80 million contract. I'm being paid like a number one, and I'm feeling good about myself."
Hmm. I think, and like I said, we can't speak for Odell Beckham, obviously, but if I would be him, why wouldn't you want to stay on the Rams, especially if they win the Super Bowl? You're on a winning team. You know that you're going to have targets, especially on the other side. You have Cooper Cup, who is just a great receiver. So if I was Odell Beckham, yeah, the money's great and everything, but if the Rams give me another deal, especially how they were playing, they're able to keep most of their team with the
But again,
defense. With
Robert Woods will be back next year. Van Jefferson's still there.
Mm.
So, all those things factor in. We don't know, can the Rams legitimately offer him? I'm sure, yeah, they could offer him minimum wage. Is he going to take that? No. So, they, of course, they could offer him, but, you know,
So where do you think he would be best fitted at?
God, Arizona.
You really are on Arizona, huh, for him?
They need to look at how Arizona started. Look at how Arizona finished without Hopkins.
Hmm.
Christian Kirk's a free agent, so you need another receiver. AJ Green ain't getting any younger. Hopkins ain't getting any younger. So you might as well give Murray the best talent around him.
Well, I think that
Unless
would
they
be
get
nice.
Devontae Adams is the only one that's probably going to be better that possibly hit the market. Maybe maybe if Godwin hits the market, you take Godwin over him. But realistically, okay, so he's a top 3 receiver in free agency, assuming no big names get cut. Even so, if Amari Cooper gets cut in Dallas for cap space,
You
Amari
also got
Cooper, who's
possibly Michael
older,
Thomas.
same thing. But again, because he's coming, he hasn't played
Yep.
in
In
a
a
year
year
and
and
a
a half.
half. It's going to be real hard to
Yep, I know.
justify giving him. He'll get a 1 year prove it deal.
I agree with that.
Somewhere where he's comfortable. I could see, as dumb as it sounds, I could see like Michael Thomas going to play with Lamar Jackson type of deal.
Oh, man, imagine that.
I mean, they keep trying to get him weapons year in year. I think that like that one's a good fit.
I think that would be a great fit, especially Mark Andrew. Oh God, that
Yeah,
would
of
be a
course,
nice
because then you can
thing.
get Hollywood Brown being the deep threat, Andrews and Thomas being
Just consistent with his catches.
the cat they get him the guy's catchable.
Hmm.
But all right, enough Odell Beckham. Enough to again wasn't game like, oh god, this is a classic, because it wasn't. It wasn't that Chiefs Bills game.
No.
Where they just running good 2 minutes left and there's 25 points get scored. It wasn't one of those.
Yep.
Obviously on the scoreboard it was a close game, but again, the Rams ran so many plays they should have blown them out of the water. So that's on them. Oh, the other thing I want to bring up with Stafford, and it's not never his fault. He's always had good wide receivers. He had Calvin Johnson. Now
Yeah.
he's got Cup, Beckham, Woods. So it's not a knock on him, but obviously in Detroit he didn't have anything else. They never had a running game, so he got hit all day long. For the most part, they rarely had a defense, so it wasn't like he could put the team on his back, and he tried to put the team on his back and said, "Let's go." They had a couple seasons where maybe they could have made the playoffs, but
Yeah.
realistically, they had nothing around them. So of course, him and Calvin Johnson, they're going to put up numbers. They didn't have anything. Once Calvin Johnson retired, sure, Galladay was much better there. Marvin Jones was good, but they never paired it with anything. So
Agreed. What's next, sir?
So let's jump into stick with the NFC first before we get another one. So Tom Brady retired
Officially.
officially this time. So I saw a fun fact today. I was looking up some other ones right now, but so of players 40 and older, the question was is he top 5 in receiving yards? So it sounds dumb because he's a quarterback. Is he top 5 in receiving yards as a 40-year-old player or older? I'll let you guess at it, and then we'll give you the actual answer.
Well, since you posed the question, I would think he would be like number 4 or something.
So is that your guess that he's number 4?
Yeah. I feel like I don't think he would be number 1. I don't think he would be maybe number 3. I don't
Number
think
1
he
was
would be.
Jerry Rice. He's a Hall of Famer, so that makes sense. Number 2, with 6 receiving yards, number 2 was Tom Brady.
My
Uh, Number 3, I think they said was Brett Favre with like 2 receiving yards, and whoever the fourth person was, who I forgot what it was, had -1 receiving yards. And those are the 4 people 40 plus to catch a pass. So good on Tom Brady for being number 2 in receiving yards at the age of 40. I mean, so yeah, technically he wasn't top 5. There's only 4 people, but he's actually number 2.
That's insane. Listen, he officially came out and he's retiring. Good on him. I keep seeing all week. It's like it's an end of an era. You have Phil Rivers, not anymore. Drew Brees not anymore. Big Ben gone. Tom Brady gone.
Well, they weren't. So some of them weren't in that same one. So I was thinking of this yesterday. So that quarterback class, I actually want to pull that up. So that draft, you had Eli Manning, you had Ben, you had Rivers. There is one guy still left in that draft class. I just want to see if there's any more.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So there's a 2004 draft. There was, where are they? 17 quarterbacks drafted. Oh,
There
it's
you
not gonna show me who they were. That's lame.
go.
That is stupid. But anyway, so there was a quarterback still drafted in that draft who has not retired yet. Do you know who it is?
God, I want to say like Matt Ryan or something like that.
Nope, not quite Matt Ryan. He was a first round pick though. This guy is also was a first round pick. Just he was back there. So Eli went 1.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Rivers went 4.
Mm.
Ben went 11. Oof. Oh, was he not in this class? Wow. I thought he was in that class. So maybe he's a year forward. I swore he was in that class. Let me just check.
I can't even answer your question.
Guess I should have did better research.
But even so, I'm trying to think who's still in that like time zone, like time period. That's still.
Oh, he was a few years forward. Okay. He was in the Matt Ryan class. So I guess that's the next group of quarterbacks is Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco was going to be the answer. I swore he was in that same draft class. He was not.
Oh yeah, Joe Flacco's
So
still.
so sadly he's still in the league.
Goodness gracious. Well, you got to figure that Matt Ryan's probably last year is next year, if not this year.
Well, again, quarterbacks age a little better, but that whole draft class, I think of that one, I think Rivers actually was the oldest one out of them. Because Eli retired before them.
Mm-hmm.
So Eli's 41 now. Rivers is 40, but he played an extra season over Eli. And I think Ben's only like 38. Ben's 39. So I think Rivers technically played till 40 because it's a new, in that new year.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rivers actually had the one extra season on them, age-wise. Not him. I mean, they were all productive. Obviously,
Yeah.
Rivers didn't get a Super Bowl, but
Which is upsetting.
but for the most part, is that this is one of the better quarterback classes. I wish when I clicked on the 17 quarterbacks, it would just name them so I could see who else was in there, but that's too much to ask for out of Wikipedia. So I'm,
Well, you got to go in and change it yourself.
scrolling down, and I'm like, okay, so what? There's 4 quarterbacks in the first round. Matt Schaub in the third round. He was a Pro Bowler, so not terrible. Trying to see anybody else. Luke McCown. I think he may still even be in the league. Mostly a career backup. Craig Krenzel. That's a fail and a half. So all right, you got one huge swing and a miss. Granted, he was a 6th round pick, so at that point, no harm, no foul. But okay, the top end of this draft was one of the better ones. This is not Mark Sanchez or the Geno Smith drafts. So
But Fumble Sanchez.
This wasn't too bad. But we'll just throw. So, did you know that Tom Brady has won more Super Bowls than any other franchise in football?
That's not surprising. The man has every kind of acclaim you can have. Passing yards, touchdowns. It
Of
doesn't
course,
surprise me.
longevity obviously helps. Somebody could jump in and say, "Well, the Patriots," but guess what? He won a Super Bowl after he left the Patriots, so they won all their Super Bowls with him. and then he went on to win one more, so he has more than their franchise does.
There is a question I have for you, sir. So when
Oh,
Brady announced his retirement, he brought up Tampa a couple times.
uh
No mention of the Patriots, Belichick, or Kraft. What are your thoughts on that?
huh. Sorry. Uh, well, he did after put out a bigger thing, praising the organization, everything else.
Yeah, but that was
So
the first
I
thing.
don't fully think that it was. Yes, you're correct. Probably should have been the first thing, but he ended his career there. We don't know how poorly it ended. I could understand him not acknowledging Belichick because that's just two super egos clashing. But him not acknowledging Kraft is kind of weird, because Kraft, took him under his wing,
Hmm.
all this and that. And even to an extent, I get it, they're clashing egos. It wasn't for Belichick, you know, he may not have won those Super Bowls and all this and that, and them holding on to him because there's all those stories out there. His rookie year, he was like, I think he might have started like sixth on the depth chart, but at a point he was fourth on the depth chart, and teams don't carry four quarterbacks. Nowadays they barely carry two. You have to carry two, but they some of these teams barely carry two. You
Hmm.
know, so the fact that they kept four so that they wouldn't lose him, says a lot right there. But no, I don't think it was a like a purposeful slight on them. Yeah, he might be a little pissed off that he didn't play his whole entire career there. But like I said, Kraft took good care of him. But even so, as a what have you done for me lately league, just like every other sport. So what
Hmm.
has anybody done for him lately was Tampa Bay, and they paid him.
And
They
he
took
got
him to
him
the
around.
promised land. So I get that part as well.
I was just curious because when I first read the report when it first came out, I was like looking. I'm like, okay, okay, no Patriots, no Belichick, no Kraft. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I know a lot of people said that, but things like that happen all the time, and then everybody will overanalyze it and
Yeah, of course, of course. I
whatever
just
else.
figured it was
You know, things could come out. They could be not. No matter what, you could have had like an impromptu press conference. Because you felt like you're forced to come out and retire, and you didn't have time to plan out all these things. All those different things. Who knows?
exactly. Well, the fact of the matter is, I know you have mixed feelings. The man was incredible. Like, say what you will about the cheating and all that bullshit. The man still put up numbers. Any given day, there's 1 minute on the clock and you need to score. Brady will always be in that top three discussion of give me the ball, I will go down and score. It's
Yeah.
just
The
how it is.
the only other stupid thing I heard was it got brought up somewhere. Because he retired, that he owes money back to Tampa. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no way in hell Tampa would be that petty to force him to pay back the money because he retired. He took you to a Super Bowl and then gave you a legitimate Super Bowl contending team, and then everybody got hurt in year two. Barring injuries, we're probably talking about Tampa Bay again right now. Their defense got banged up real early in the season, and then their wideouts got banged up real late in the season, and then there's a whole Antonio Brown fiasco. If you take the injuries out and you keep the Antonio Brown fiasco, they're a really good team without Antonio Brown. They're going to the Super Bowl probably again.
Agreed.
Instead, they're banged up. They lose to a really good team, but there's no way. There is no way Tampa's owners are like, Tom, you retired. That just screwed us over. You're gonna have to pay us back that money. You know, the signing bonus money. No way in hell.
But just imagine.
I mean, dumber things have happened.
Oh,
So
of course.
sure, but that would give, as long as you own the team, that's gonna put bad taste in people's mouths. Why are you gonna want to go play there then, knowing that
Yeah.
he's gonna pull something like that. Like, what, oh, I'm 35 years old and I got a year left on my contract, but I'm coming off a major knee injury and I don't know if I can go anymore. So if I retire, he's going to fucking make me pay him back type of thing. Like, no, fuck that. For whatever was in your contract, things. But anyway.
All in all, I think, like I said, the man, good on you for retiring. 22 years. Back in 7 rings. Incredible. It's just incredible. I do think it's going to be interesting. And of course, we'll talk about it more in the weeks to follow. Is what is going to happen now in the NFC South?
Yeah, well, once we hit that Super Bowl, that'll be our, like probably like closing out the football season
Yeah,
show
of course, of
type of
course, of
thing.
course.
But
Little
yeah,
teaser for you all.
yes, we've talked about it for weeks upon weeks about the quarterback carousel. That just adds another team to, into the mix.
I can't wait.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And the other crazy thing is, and I don't know if we mentioned it, we might have, is the NFL is going to be coming up on a collective bargaining agreement. We see what's going on with baseball right now. Spring training should be starting in 2 weeks in baseball. They're still locked out.
Mm-hmm.
The owners are greedy. They want more and more and more money, and they're all billionaires, and they need more money. I get it that the players, in sports are overpaid as well, getting to play a sport. But both sides make pretty damn good money, and they're over here fighting about this. And I can tell you one thing: you don't play baseball, you're not making money, which means the owners are losing money, players are losing money. So if the same things happen, and I know football's got a lot of concessions, about like future health, all different things, because it's a physical sport. We could be headed down that same road in football, which may scare some teams away from, we talked about Odell Beckham, may scare teams away from making those contracts, which may play into other riskier teams possibly getting a quarterback in this carousel that maybe they shouldn't have gotten. So yeah, this will be real interesting.
And
So
that it
once
will be.
once we get the Super Bowl open, it's all fair game, and players will start making things happen. And yay!
Indeed.
Are we ready for
Bengals
the other
won.
one? The Bengals did win.
I'm so happy for them.
Yeah, they say that they don't feel as they were the underdog, etc. So this game went to overtime, and the Chiefs got the ball first, and of course everybody's sitting there. Oh, this game's over. This game's over. This game's over. And Mahomes comes out, and I don't know, not good. We'll just say.
So we got a comment here. I'll bring that up in 1 second. This is throwing it at you, sir.
Yeah, well, a lot of teams have cap
Issues like this thing.
issues. You, you know, the Chiefs did a pretty good job though, because you got to figure they're the highest paid player in football. So it's hard to work with that to begin with. So they've done a pretty good job, working cap space. So good on them. They seem to know what they're doing. Where other teams, it's easy to say that like the Cowboys having cap problems. They have a lot of offensive players. Yeah, exactly. Because they manipulated Mahomes' contract perfectly. Down the line, they're gonna have lots of cap problems, but they're already a winning team, and they're gonna have cap room to build this team. So they're in really good shape. But now, somebody, you Josh, you Pete, somebody tell me why the Giants are 20 million over the cap. Why? Why? That's just bad cap management. You have a rookie, a quarterback on a rookie contract, so he ain't breaking the bank. Barkley was on a rookie contract, he ain't breaking the bank, and you're still 20 million over the cap. Why? They don't have Odell Beckham anymore, so he ain't breaking their bank.
They don't have JPP.
They don't have him. They don't have Michael Strahan. They don't have Tiki Barber. They don't have Eli Manning. Like, why? But that's what I mean, is they'll be able to address things like that. they traded with the Ravens to get Orlando Brown, I believe, was the one they got from him. So they could build with him, and then teams with cap problems like the one that I'm staring at right now with a Saints hat on. A lot of people think they're going to lose Armstead, who's one of the better tackles in football. So your team sitting there with 74 million in cap space and have a winning product already. It's an easy sell to him.
Mm-hmm.
I saw speculation that the Bengals, the Bengals have good tackles, so one of them would have to move inside, so he might not be a perfect fit. But a team like the Chiefs, absolutely. And you're gonna get other teams. We don't know what Tampa's gonna do now that Brady's gone. Are they gonna go get a quarterback and keep this core? Or are they gonna retool? What is Green Bay gonna do if they lose Rodgers?
When they lose Rodgers, let's be real.
Yeah. Again, me and Matt talked the bowling. There's no reason for him to leave the NFC. If you go to Denver, because you're still competing with Mahomes, you're still competing with the Chargers. I get it that the Raiders, were a nice story this year, but the Raiders are still the Raiders. But realistically, you still have three really good teams and a pretty good team in your division.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you leave that? And if Rodgers leaves the NFC, who's the best quarterback in the NFC right now? There's probably only one answer. I mean, I know you'll say Russell, but
I would
who's
say
the best?
Kyler Murray.
Could be.
But
Prescott,
Prescott, of course, yeah.
We could flip a coin on any of them, but guess what? None of them are winning. Cards are out in the first round playoffs. Guess what? The Cowboys are out in the first round playoffs.
Well, the Cowboys also have a division that's fucking terrible.
Russell Wilson didn't even make the
Admirals,
playoffs.
by the way.
No, the Commandeers or whatever they are.
Oh, the
Commander. There's Commandeers. Either way, Trainwreck is the answer. Washington Trainwreck.
They legit went from the Redskins to the fucking people that were dated.
I think they picked that name just to thumb their nose at people.
Oh, I have no doubt.
And I can see their owner doing that, but that we'll have a different conversation on that. But let's go back to this game. Chiefs had the ball first in overtime. Everybody thinks the game's over, which they were really bad in the second half of that game.
They were terrible in the second half.
And I know it got said at the game. The only points they scored in the second half of the game was that last second field goal to get the game in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on with a Patrick Mahomes-led team against an average, maybe slightly above average Bengals defense? All of a sudden, he couldn't score on them. I think it's a lot of, my dad asked me this. Teams taking the foot off the pedal. People get butthurt if you run a score up on them. Run a score up on them. It's a playoff game. You're here to win.
Look at what happened with the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. You take the foot off the pedal and stop doing what got you up 23 and you end up losing, because now you're trying to milk the clock by running the ball and you can't get first downs because you're not a good running team and bam, you end up losing the game. And I'm not saying, Mahomes threw the ball 39 times. Eric McKinnon had 12 rushes for 65 yards. That's 5.5. So that was pretty effective. Edwards-Helaire only had 6 rushes for 36, which is 6. So it's not like the running game wasn't effective, but how all of a sudden you're running you had 5.4, 6, 6.3, and 9. So you're running the ball effectively. Can you not all of a sudden score in the second half? I just don't understand it.
Especially with the weapons that he has.
Kelsey had 10 catches. Hill had 7. Like, what? I just don't understand it.
What happened in that locker room at halftime? That's the question.
Yeah, did they just, did Jackson Mahomes come play quarterback and, whatever else? Like, I just do not understand it. But, again, all props to Cincy. They could have rolled over and died when they came out, kick a field goal, chase touchdown, kick another field goal, and bam, all of a sudden they're up 3. And everybody's like, what just happened?
Yep. In Arrowhead, no less.
Exactly, on the road.
And that's and we're gonna get into it obviously next week for our Super Bowl show. But I mean, you can't. If this was anything to show, is The Cincinnati Bengals went in to Tennessee, number one seed, took them out on the road. Went to Arrowhead, facing the former AFC champions,
Hmm.
and literally got pounded into the ground in the first half. And everybody's like, well, this is what was to be expected. You have the Bengals, they just can't keep up with this Chiefs offense. But the grit and the determination that they showed in that second half to show that we're not just laying over and dying. Their defense stepping up and in overtime, because I even texted you and Matt saying, oh, here we go again with in overtime, that they're going to lose because the Chiefs got the ball first. And just that interception by Cincy and driving down the field, like, it just shows that, there's something going over in Cincinnati, and I hope, and we'll get into it with the Rams in Cincinnati. Like, that's going to be a challenging game, but how do you bet right now against Cincinnati, especially taking down a dominant team such as the Tennessee Titans? Granted, you had Derrick Henry come back, and we discussed about how he was probably only at 80%, but still, you have one of the best running
Hmm.
backs. You have A.J. Brown. Like, you had a good ass team in Tennessee lose. You have Mahomes and the former champions with the best tight end in the business, one of the best wide receivers in the business, and just falling apart in the second half just because, oh, we can't keep scoring. Like, come on. Your game in the playoffs is to make sure you win. It's you win or you go home. That's the fact of the matter. And the Cincinnati was saying we're not going home. And God bless that kicker, man. God bless him for making these top tier plays and these field goals when it matters most.
Well, it's funny because they come out there and whoever's in charge of social media after every time is like, this is why you draft a kicker. This is why you draft a kicker, which is true. You always look at it, kickers are roller coaster, carousel, whatever, anything. You're up and down with kickers and musical kickers and all those different things. You can say whatever you want. Having a solid kicker is beneficial.
Look at me every year for fantasy, and not the last couple of years, but in the first, I would say 3-4 years, you would always take Mr. Tucker, and I would always take Dan Bailey because
Hmm.
they were just consistent and they gave you the points that you needed, and they were there in crunch time when you needed it to win in a fantasy week. I
So
mean,
here's what I'm thinking. We're gonna get away from kickers as much as it pains me. Bengals were not a good team the year before. Uh, you know, yeah, Burrow got hurt. That obviously changed the dynamic,
I believe they
etc.
had 4 wins the year before, right?
Yep. So they had a top pick again. So, oh no, they took Jamar Chase. Everybody's critical about it. You have such much more, bigger needs over Jamar Chase. Yada yada yada. What happened? Now they're going to the Super Bowl. I get it. They had T. Higgins. They had Tyler Boyd. So yeah, Jamar Chase was not a priority. This is a copycat league. They took Burrow, and then they took his college receiver, and now they're going to the Super Bowl. They took a wide receiver over, needs. We talked about the week before. Oh, they're going to lose because their O line sucks. The Chiefs will be able to manhandle their O line. Didn't happen. And then they end up winning. So will we see this more? Okay, college has been a little weird just because now we're on year two of COVID. So college football's played differently of late.
Hmm.
But do you think we'll see this more often? Like I'm saying, is it's going to be hard to get Trevor Lawrence, a Clemson wide receiver. But are we going to be seeing this more down the line, where all of a sudden, the next star quarterback that comes out, whether it's in that draft or the next draft class or whatever, our team's going to try and start pairing them. I've been a proponent of this for years, and it just never happened. But I'm starting to think that teams may finally say, "Hey, we're looking to build our franchise around this guy. We got to make him as comfortable as possible." Jamar Chase didn't have a monster game. He only had 54 yards receiving, had a touchdown, but T Higgins went off. He had 6 for 103.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the impact that Chase has had on the season, I feel like teams need to start doing this, and that's what I was starting to say. Is that I've been a proponent of this. The year the Jets drafted Geno Smith, not that his wide receivers were great, but they were his college wide receivers. None of them were. Tavon Austin ended up, I believe, being a first round pick, but the other ones were not. But I was like, let's get him that so he's comfortable. It's the Jets; they don't do anything logically anyway. But being a Jets fan, I was like, hey, okay, we took Geno Smith. Let's go get Stedman Bailey. Let's go get one of these other receivers who were like a third to fifth round pick to put with Geno Smith so he's got something he's comfortable with. No, teams don't do that. Okay, some teams walk into better things, where you're Kyler Murray and you end up trading for Hopkins. Yeah, that's ideal. But how often do things like that happen?
Oh, 100%.
So if you're a team and you're drafting a franchise quarterback, you odds are you don't have, you know, you, Trevor Lawrence went one. He wasn't sitting there with Calvin Johnson on his team already. Okay, cool. He's got DJ Chark, but nobody's. DJ Chark's not Cooper Kupp. He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not obviously these guys. He's nice, but he's not that elite difference-making playmaker who can just dominate a game.
Would have been interesting, though, caveat, if he didn't get injured. I would have liked to see if he stayed healthy, how the season would have progressed with those two.
Sure. But it's not like they didn't have weapons, and they let weapons go as well. Like Keelan Cole was a nice fit for that team before Trevor Lawrence. Gardner Minshew worked with Chark. He worked with Keelan Cole. They're not huge name receivers, but they put in the work. So then, Keelan Cole's out. They bring in Marvin Jones, who's an above average veteran. Didn't have a great year, but they put pieces on the table. It just doesn't work. You gotta give quarterbacks something they're comfortable with.
I agree, though, and we've had this discussion, of course, on the show before. You being a big proponent of quarterback and wide receiver from college, and it just shows. And I think Common will obviously touch on this more, but I think that the conversation has to be talked about, especially if Chase has a big game. Of course, he's going to be paired up against Ramsey, which will be an interesting dynamic. But I mean, it has to.
Sure, I'm gonna cut you off real quick. But think about something like that. Okay, so he's paired up against Ramsey. What I just said before is they beat the Chiefs without Chase going off. So you're neutralizing their best player, and now T. Higgins had 6 for 103.
Mm-hmm.
So it still works in there. So maybe Jamar Chase doesn't go for 150 yards or 250 yards like he did that one game. Oh no, but he's it's playing into your team's. So they're what will hurt them is Uzama, the tight end, getting hurt. They still have the weapons, but that's just a different type of weapon. A good tight end is always.
But they said that when he went down, like they were saying, like, oh, this could be a big blow to the Bengals. But Higgins did step up. You saw that he's a big dude, and to make that big catch to get that first down is huge. And then, like I said, he didn't have the craziest game, but Tyler Boyd is also still a very good wide receiver that could make an impact in this Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, I think Burrow and the team he has right now, like, yeah, you have Jamar Chase that he's worked with, and they have that one-on-one mind because of the college years, but you still got Burrow just being like, hey, on to the next game. Like, we got this. Like, and I think that
you got to keep that mentality, though. You can't be like, oh man, we're gonna lose now because so and so got hurt.
Of course, you can't have that.
Everybody's getting hurt.
Everybody, yeah. But I definitely think as the Chiefs, what do you do there? Because, I mean,
well, as Josh said, they have cap room. Things they have a couple guys who are gonna hit free agency that they might just let walk, which is why they may end up with $74 million in cap space. But they have needs. O-line is obviously one of them because you can't have Mahomes run around like a maniac making bad throws because he's gonna press that envelope. He's gonna throw it left-handed. He's gonna no look pass it.
across the and
You
just
know,
like
you don't want that. I get
no.
it that sometimes it works and it looks great and it's gonna be on every highlight reel, but you don't want your quarterback doing that.
I mean, look at the play that we saw with the where he, I think, was running for 10 seconds at least.
Hmm.
Where running over here, running over there, like trying to force it. I'm like, okay, you want to make that big play, but at this time, you need to make the plays that advance. So you get a first down. So you're able to make those big plays, not when it's, third down and you need to make that first down play and you're just running
Yeah.
around
Well,
trying to make this
we had
big
this
action play.
conversation with Barkley. You know, he was always looking for the home run instead of taking what's
Hmm.
given him.
Hmm.
You know, Mahomes
Lamar
is the
Jackson, I
same
was
way.
going to bring up.
He needs to, sometimes just be like, okay, throw it away or whatever. I
Hmm.
can't,
Hmm.
I'm not going 40 for 40 passing for 500 yards. I need to you slow it down here. Sometimes throwing it away is better than throwing an interception.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, all times throwing it away is better than throwing an interception. But yeah,
I mean, but good on the Bengals for sticking it into that game and
yeah,
just
and now we get to see. Do they have what it takes? There's one game left. You know, get it all on the line. I mean, I'm sure everybody. I think the line opened up with the Rams being 7-point favorites. So a lot of people are obviously expecting the Rams to win, but you could say that every week. We expected the Bengals to lose, and they won.
yeah, yeah, the
So
last 2 weeks, like I said before, Titans, you expected
yeah,
them to lose, the
Titans
Bengals
were
to
the
lose.
1 seed in Tennessee. Yep, and same thing. The Chiefs were 2 seed in Arrowhead, and Bengals came through twice. So can
And I believe they're both the 4 seed. I think Rams were 4 and so was the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, the Rams were definitely 4.
Yeah, and I think since he was 4, so I'm like, look at that. You have the first 3 on both divisions out or the both conferences out.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is a lot of people. Yeah, since he was also the 4.
that's what I thought.
It's hard to. Most years though, it's not 1v1 in the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
And if it was, it would be easy to bet on. Things
Anything could happen.
happen.
Like I said, that's the one thing that we've said on this show many times. Look at what happened this year,
Yeah.
whether it be the Jags and the Bills game where it
Hmm.
was I
Detroit and
mean,
Arizona, any of them.
and that's the thing that you have to go in with the Super Bowl. And like I said, we'll touch on it more next week, but God, you got to believe in Cincy and with how everything's going their way. Like, how do you not?
Yeah, of course, they're riding high. They're feeling good.
Oh yeah,
Obviously, the Rams are as well, but the Rams were a good chunk of people's preseason pick to win the Super Bowl or
yeah,
at
of
least
course.
be the NFC team. So I get that. When doubt many teams picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl.
Agreed, agreed.
All right, let's. We got one more little thing to touch on. I have there's a big interview tomorrow, but we were talking about those quarterback wide receiver college tandems. We'll lead in with this. So you had one in Miami where you had Waddle and Tua. So now their coach is coming out saying that he was offered 100K to lose. And if you looked at them in the beginning of the year, it certainly looked like it. But then they rattled off 7 in a row and almost made the playoffs. Then all these other things are coming out. He's now suing teams over racism, etc., etc. So tomorrow there's going to be a Brian Flores interview on I think it's a ESPN show coming out, talking about all these things, and it all came, I guess, together with a Belichick, of all people, text message. So what do we think? Just throw. We all thought Flores was going to get hired. That he was a good coach, etc. Now he's possibly they're saying the Texans are interested in him, but he could be throwing away his career. And we're white, so racism. We can't really chime in and be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, racism. But do we feel like he's making the right stand here, possibly risking the rest of his future to stand up for what he feels is right. It probably is right, but because the NFL does a terrible job. I don't know if you're in that group chat with it. The NFL has a thing called the Rooney Rule, where you have to interview at least one minority candidate. So you can't just be like, the Saints now need a coach. So they can't just say, "Hey, we're hiring this guy." They have to interview, you know,
The special
a
teams coach, which is hiring, we're interviewing this week.
but they have to interview a minority candidate
Mm-hmm.
before they can hire anyone. So even if they knew, and this has been the problem is, say the Saints knew that they wanted to hire that guy as the coach. Just saying, oh, we're gonna name blah 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 the coach. That's who they want, but now you got to bring in a guy as a token interview for what? That's kind of, I feel like that's degrading. Great, you're getting an interview for a job that you're not going to get. That'd be like me over here, like applying to be, CEO of Tesla. Like, I ain't getting a job. Like, we're just wasting each other's time, type of deal. So it's just, I understand, what the rules are supposed to be, but it doesn't work like that, and it's just a joke. And I feel like he's taking a stand to fight these things, but just the way
He went about it.
society is, he's gonna end up, losing what could be his career.
I mean, you I mean, the man is standing up for what he feels is right in his eyes, and like, you can't hate on that. I mean,
But like I said, where we started with is we all thought he was gonna get a job, whether it was the Giants,
mhm.
or whatever. So now all of a sudden he's not getting a job. Does that raise flags? And is this why he's, like kind of burning everything down? I don't know. So I'm kind of interested in the interview, but I don't, like, I understand. We said rumors came out that Rodgers said he would follow his offensive coordinator wherever he went. So I understand Denver hiring him, but Denver was one of the teams that talked to Flores, etc. So I understand Denver. I to a degree understand the Giants, but you can't tell me that unproven coaches, are better than him. A lot of these coaches, okay, easy example, Harbaugh interviewed for Minnesota's job. He ended up staying in college. Rumors came out that they didn't even offer him a contract, whatever. That's an easy one, and we brought it up at bowling, obviously, because we talk sports at bowling. Harbaugh makes good money in college. What is Minnesota going to offer him anyway? So even though he's not a minority, it's almost like that was a token interview to say the fans like, hey, we interviewed Harbaugh. Great. You weren't hiring him. You're hiring some guy. You hired some guy that nobody's ever heard of.
Mhm.
It's just silly. But the real conversation we had is like outside of select schools, like big college coaches never leave. They don't. Sorry, they never get fired. They either leave to take a better job or leave for the NFL, get fired from the NFL, come back to college, and then they're set. Like Nick Saban dominated college, came to the NFL, didn't work out, went back to college, and he's still there. He hasn't moved on. Urban Meyer did his thing, retired, came back, went to Ohio State, had controversy there, had got fired, went to the NFL, boom, didn't even last a year. College football coaches, it just seems like that's where you want to be. They make better money and all that. And I'm not saying Flores should go to become a college coach, but I'm just saying is it just seems more logical. Like being an NFL coach is obviously not all it's cracked up to be. You're not you're making more money, but look at a lot of these guys. They came out, they were a coach, it didn't work out. Josh McDaniels, he's finally getting a head coaching job again. Sought after, New England's winning all these Super Bowls, working magic with Tom Brady, blah blah blah. Goes to Denver, has Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall, fails, goes back to New England. The only team that really tried to hire him after that was Detroit. All these years go by, and finally the Raiders are interested in him. It just doesn't seem like in the NFL it's not a good shelf life. Like you lose more head coaches and then replace them with whatever. As you said earlier, the Saints special teams coach, not an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, whatever, special teams coach. Denver, they hired Packers offensive coordinator to be head coach. Okay, fine, that's okay. That's like the next step up.
Yeah,
But then they hired like the tight ends coach to be the offensive coordinator. He went from coaching like 4 guys to now coaching the entire offense. What? It's just weird coaching in the NFL.
and to touch on that too is look at Las Vegas, them losing their head coach in the middle of the season. Like it is the uncertainty of being a head coach and dealing like, oh, offensive or even defensive. Like, hey, we can see that you've dealt with a team as a whole. Like, okay, you have more experience as in with the offense, or you have more experience with the defense. Here's a head coach to try to merge the two to see how you go with the two. Even like special teams. Like, yeah, am I excited that this guy and I'm blanking on the name? I apologize. Am I excited for him to be the head coach, like, or possibly be the head coach? It's better than, at least he knows
Yeah, but even then,
how the
he's
team
dealing with the special
operates.
teamers. He's not, he's probably never worked with Kamara in his life, things
Mhm,
like that. So it's like, ooh, he knows them and knows the people, but he works with those guys who, the fourth, you know, tier fours of those positions. The fourth running back who's out there as a
mhm,
gunner, things like that. So he's
mhm.
got that, like where he's familiar with those guys. But you did just touch on a good point that made me think of something. So the Raiders, who brought in Josh McDaniels, apparently their players were not happy that they didn't bring back the guy who replaced Gruden. And you know what? I don't blame them. They made the playoffs under this guy with everything going on. You know, talk about a circus right then and there. I don't
Mhm.
understand how you. But again, owners don't care. Realistically, is what it comes down to. This guy took over John Gruden's job. Your Ruggs is going to jail for the rest of his life, and everything else that's going on. And this guy takes you to the playoffs, and you're
Mhm.
like, okay, we're gonna bring in
When they
Josh
were not
McDaniel.
looking in the middle of the season that they were a team that was not together and they were falling apart.
Yep, that's what I don't understand. If you can work wonders with that, how are you not bringing this guy back? He's getting interviews. He's another Texans interviewee, and I think Jacksonville. I mean, I'm still 100% sure Jacksonville's going to hire Byron Leftwich, but like somebody who kept this team together. Obviously, I think Carr had a big part to play in it,
Of
but
course, of course.
how are you not bringing this guy back? Even if you're not sold on him, you give him like a 2-year contract. And if he fucks, the Raiders win 3 games next year, you're like, okay, maybe it's a fluke. Let's go get whoever. But what is Josh McDaniels? So what? You were excited, how Mac Jones played this season? I mean, I guess, but what did Mac Jones really show you that you're like, oh my god, Josh McDaniels is the fucking answer? Like, oh god, Josh McDaniels is gonna take Hunter Renfro and Brian Edwards and Jacobs,
To
and
the
they're just gonna
playoffs. That's why.
watch the Raiders go like 17-0 next season. I'm gonna
Yeah,
make
man.
fun of Josh McDaniels, but it just boggles my mind.
Yeah. But like you
S-
said before, it's the NFL. Like right now, it feels like you being a college coach is what you want to do.
Yeah, like other sports have minor leagues, things like that. Hockey has their minor leagues, baseball has their minor leagues,
Hmm.
basketball has the D League slash college is kind of almost like a minor league, and you could say the same thing with college football. But it's like because those coaches have it so much better there. It's not like you're like, okay, let's groom these coaches in college, and then they come up to the NFL, and they may rotate around there, changing philosophy, etc. And the next group comes in. No, it's like so and so retired or whatever, and now we're just gonna pull some hot shot who no one's ever heard of. Yeah, it looks great with Sean McVay this year, and years past, okay, you look good with Shanahan, but first off, Shanahan had a father who was an NFL coach, so that kind of helps as well.
Hmm.
But now, we're gonna harp on it all day long. Who's to tell me Nathaniel Hackett's going to be a better head coach than Brian Flores is, or whoever? Sure, I'm sure Nathaniel Hackett's a better head coach than Adam Gase is, or things like that. But like, did Aaron Rodgers make Nathaniel Hackett? More than likely, he had Rodgers, Jones, and Adams pretty good. I could have been their offensive coordinator, and
Made
all of a sudden,
magic as well.
I'm getting head coaching jobs out of nowhere, and I got no clue what I'm doing.
Hmm.
I just don't like the state of NFL coaching. Like, there's no Mike Tomlin had a winning record every year, in Pittsburgh. And they didn't fire him. Why fire him? Yeah, they're not winning Super Bowls every single year, but you know what? You know what you're getting from him. It'll be different now losing your franchise quarterback, but
But still, it seems like Pittsburgh is just like, hey,
they've
these
had
are the guys we're
stability.
backing. This is what we believe. Like the good, the bad. We know that at least
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, it will be a better year than a worse year.
you want that. You're supposed to have stability from the top down.
Hmm.
And how many teams really have this? Yeah, you could say like Seattle because Pete Carroll's been there for a while, but you saw what happened to them this year. Now they're falling apart, and everybody's like, "Get Pete Carroll out! Get Pete Carroll out! Trade Russell Wilson! Whatever. You need that stability. But you got Belichick, you got Tomlin, you got Pete Carroll, and you get what? The Bears go through coaches more than you change your underwear. The Lions, were a mess all these years. Jacksonville's a train wreck. Things like that. You don't have that. You don't have those coaches who were there for years like you did, even as late as the '90s. You can sit there and be like, "Oh, so and so was the Colts coach for 10 years," and now if you're a
Sean
coach for
Payton.
yeah, Sean Payton, exactly. He decided he didn't get fired. He decided to retire. We'll see how long that lasts. Obviously, a season, but he decided to retire. But the point being is if you're a coach for like 3 years without getting fired,
That's a
you're one of
miracle.
the highest tenured coaches
Yeah.
because everybody else just got fired.
That is a carousel. If there is, hey, oh, this new head coach for the Bears, new head coach for the Raiders. It's absolutely insane. I feel like the job security for a head coach in the NFL is lower than shit.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of why these teams aren't winning because you can't you can't develop anything because either the head coach gets fired, the GM gets
Hmm.
fired, they both get fired, whatever. Within three, obviously it's a struggle for these teams to turn it around because you got to change in direction. Okay, Jacksonville with Urban Meyer, fine. You weren't sitting there with 3 years of Trevor Lawrence and a new coach and then this and that. You got fired right away, and that's why I think Leftwich will be the answer because he's a former quarterback, stuff like that. But they got they can't fire Brian Leftwich if they go 2-15 next year. They can't be like, oh well, Byron Leftwich sucks. They gotta you gotta give them some time and
Develop relationships, be able to
supposedly a
figure
lot
out
of the
what fits
problem with
what.
that team was yeah, exactly. And apparently a lot of the problem with that team is their GM. So they need to figure that out and then be like, okay, We need a 5-year plan. I know fans don't want to hear that, and owner probably don't want to hear that. But hey, you got to have some kind of plan.
Mhm.
And all these teams changing coaches all the time. Obviously being a Jets fan, the same thing. Their coaches are Rex has been the longest one for years. Eric Mangini, fail. Gase, fail. All these different guys. But you're not getting anywhere. It doesn't help the quarterbacks, especially when you're drafting young quarterbacks. Is your bad team. So we can't all have Andy Reid and Bruce Arians and Pete Carroll and all that. Even
Mhm.
so, Arians got fired from Arizona, and then look, he goes to Tampa and wins the Super Bowl.
It's just it's with head coaches, you have to have a good team and a good organization behind you so you're able to make those big plays. Because like, I'll bring Sean Payton up again, like, even this year, like, you didn't have Drew Brees. You didn't have your quarterback that you've had for 10 plus years,
Hmm.
and and then you lose Jameis Winston, who is your quarterback of the year, but
Yeah,
Sean
yep.
Payton still has that camaraderie with the New Orleans Saints where they were a playoff team. If
They
things
they
went differently, they
they
could have been in the
played
playoffs.
their last game of the season still had meaning, which obviously not all teams can say. But I know we've been talking about coaches just because this whole scandal, etc.
Mhm.
We'll close it out with that. So, do you think? And I'm not even saying just losing Drew Brees. What do you think really factored into Peyton deciding to retire? Do you-
Personally?
yeah, personally, I was just curious what you think. You know, Obviously he was invested in Taysom Hill.
Mhm,
Fantasy wise, Taysom Hill is not terrible, but he was one of the Taysom Hill believers.
mhm.
You could bring back Jameis next year. So what changed that all of a sudden he's hanging him up? He didn't want none.
D I mean, it could have been many things. Like I said, he's going to ESPN, I'm correct, if I'm correct.
Yeah, but I mean everybody. Breeze retired, and there was fights for him. NBC wanted him, ABC wanted him for special league games, ESPN wanted him for their games. Tony Romo when he retired,
Mhm. But the
battle over
argument can be
him.
made with Sean Payton is how do you know that on the side, him and Drew Brees are not talking? Drew Brees could be like, no, this commentator thing is great. It's so much like fun to like be in the booth and just be calling. How do you know Sean Payton's not like, you know what? Here I am. I don't have my Drew Brees anymore. Nothing against Jameis Winston, but I don't have Drew Brees. Michael Thomas, who's a top tier receiver, didn't come back. Kamara wasn't having the best year. Yeah, I have Cameron Jordan, who's always been my defensive guy, but after so many years, let me try this other venture. You don't know, like it's the same thing that could be said with Pete Carroll. If Pete Carroll goes or Russell Wilson goes, that could dramatically change that dynamic in Seattle. Just because you've been with these guys for so long that it's like, you know what, maybe a change of pace is right.
Well, here's where I'm gonna backtrack with you because I don't want to say we all thought it, but most of us thought it. When Brady left, everybody thought Belichick would be retire. He's still there. He had a year of Cam Newton, which obviously didn't go very well.
Mm.
But now he's got Mac Jones. So I don't know. Same type of situation. Obviously at that time Brady didn't retire. He moved on.
Do you think that if Brady came out first and retired, do you think Sean Payton would have stayed?
I mean, I said something not like that. Do I think Peyton was? No, I don't think so. I honestly really think Peyton wants a Giants job or even a Cowboys job. I think he wants one of those two jobs. And we don't know, as usual. Behind the scenes, he could have said, "Hey, can you work on a trade? Because you can trade coaches. It's not a very frequent thing, but you could say, hey,
Yeah,
trade me
but I
to,
don't think he would do
trade me
that
to the
with his
Giants."
time in New Orleans. How do
Yeah,
you
but you could pull that card. Hey, I'm not a fan of the direction his team's going in. I got you Super Bowls. Can you do me a favor? Because now you gotta retire for a year, go be an analyst, and then unretire and go get one of those jobs all of a sudden. It makes. I mean, with the Giants signing coach, I'm pretty sure at this point it's now going to be Dallas, who's had interest in him for years because they weren't backing McCarthy. They said he'll be back for next year, but that's all that's left on his contract. So if Dallas doesn't win a Super Bowl, or do something like that, Sean Payton's gonna be a coach next year. The next year,
And
2 years
no
down the line.
offense, Dallas does granted teams are gonna change and everything, but as a core, Dallas does look like, and I don't wanna say like a Saints team, but they have the running back, between Zeke and fucking Kamara. You
Yeah,
have
we
Lamb.
looked at that. Like he has been great, but he's under contract till 2027, so he's there.
Mhm,
CeeDee Lamb still on his rookie contract. Prescott got paid. So these
mhm.
guys, like you were saying, yeah, the core is going to be there. You
So
know,
how do you not look at like Sean Payton, look at them and be like, you know what? This reminds me of Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Marquise Colston.
yeah, of
Even when
course.
Jimmy Graham when he was fucking the tight end. Like, oh, this team looks like it's something I could build with. Like I said, with Sean Payton, there could be many factors, but I think at the end of the day, it could be that he talked to Drew Brees. He could want to change the scenery, or he's ready for the Dallas job in a year.
Yeah,
It
I think that's what it is because there's no way out of his contract, like without it negatively affecting him outside of retiring.
Yeah, I
Because
wish the
like you
best.
said,
I've always liked Sean Payton, and there was no secret about that. I think he was a great head coach. I think he was able, and you saw it in the Saints Instagram if you follow them, which you should. Um, is just him partying with the team when they would win, or like big moments, or like them just dancing. You see Drew Brees, Sean Payton like breaking it down in the locker room, like that. That morale, that's what's missing. Like when you have a head coach, and this brings it back to the head coach. When you have a head coach that's been there and just has a good dynamic. Even Belichick being in New England, Belichick is New England, and you see that, okay, Jones will follow him and X player will follow him because that's just the presence that he brings. I feel like a head coach really impacts a organization when they are there for more than a year or 2 years.
well, his situation worked out really great for him and Breeze. A lot of these coaches we were talking about had the great quarterback. Breeze was a Charger. He hurt his shoulder. Chargers were moving on from him anyway. So Breeze was going to sign with Miami, and Miami had concerns over his shoulder. And Sean Payton was like, "No, I want him. Let's get him." And those two grew together, and as you see, it obviously worked.
Win a Super Bowl.
So he was one of those ones where like he took a chance, like Brady, taking a chance of Brady.
Mm,
That was his. His coaching career could have been done,
yeah.
quickly if this didn't pan out. So good on them. Good on them that it ended up being a perfect situation. Like you said, Breeze did reach out, but I think that was more of a, hey, I need to get out of here. I'm sure they talk a lot. He probably was like, hey, I don't. I need to get out of here. I myself need a change of scenery, and
Yeah.
Breeze
Like
could
I
have been
said,
like,
I think
hey,
it could be those three factors.
come in. But I 100% think he's going to be Dallas's coach in 2023. But yeah, I mean, he wouldn't the top tier broadcasters making good money like Romo makes really good money, Troy Aikman made good money, Buck, those guys make good money. I don't think he'd be making the money that he would as a coach, so I don't see that as a thing. But as like a retiring player where you don't want to get beat up anymore. I think they said Breeze makes like 8 million. That's
Mhm.
pretty good turnaround. Now you're not making 40 million.
But you're
But you're
not
not
getting
you
sacked
don't
every
got
other week.
300-pound guys falling on you
Yep,
every 2
yep.
seconds either. So, that's a pretty good trade-off where, Peyton's not, getting ran over by 300-pound guys. So,
But I feel like Sean Payne will be great at that. Like, it's just uh,
I
I've
mean,
always liked Sean
as
Payton.
dumb as it sounds, yeah, all sports should have X. It's not a knock at baseball because they have a female analyst. She played softball, so I'm okay with that. Same general idea. But a lot of these sports, maybe more so hockey, where it's just a random person, not a random person, but somebody went to broadcasting school who's out like broadcasting the game. You're not getting the insight. You're just getting the, hey, this guy ran up the field, or this guy skated down the ice and passed it. Whatever. You're not getting that. Oh, this guy saw this, and this is why he did this, which is why a lot of people love Tony Romo. He's sitting there like, oh, they're gonna do this, and that first year Tony Romo was an analyst, like every single play he was right. He's still like 80% of the time right. But you get to hear that insight, and you're like, oh, hey, this is why.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it just adds so much more. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed our conversation on coaches.
Yeah, our coaching rant. This will never happen again until
But
the
if you got,
next thing comes up.
yeah.
Firings and
Oh God,
racism.
we'll be covering that. So if you want to know all about that, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Leave a comment, question, who you think will be winning the Super Bowl. Of course, next Thursday is our big Super Bowl episode where we're going to deep dive into Cincy, into the Rams. Who's going to win? What is the matchup? What are we looking at? Who is going to walk away being Super Bowl champions? All that is going to be next Thursday at 6:30. So you better make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you follow us over on the Facebook, over on the Twitter. Keep up to date, and we will see you there next Thursday at 6:30.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Joe, for always joining me, sir.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Peace.